Hey, yo, it's Fresh Hip Hop Opinion with your guy Olize. This episode is all about Lauryn Hill, the miseducation of Lauryn Hill. Boom, look who stepped in the room, it's Olize. I could have been a rapper. Anyway, it's not about me. It's about Miss Lauryn Hill's album, The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. The greatest album in my time since I've been alive. Yeah, I said it. Well, the greatest album that never had a follow-up. Let me say it like that. Because Miss Lauryn Hill, obviously we all know, well, if you don't know, you don't know. But Lauryn Hill started off in the Fugees in the early, mid-90s. They had classic albums. They had a classic album called The Score. That's the album that had Killing Me Softly. They had a style of like reggae mixed with hip hop, with the beats and the rapid style. But then Lauryn Hill did her album, like I said, what we're talking about today. That came out 25th of August 1998. The Lauryn Hill album, The Miseducation. It went number 1 on the charts, of course. But no, I say of course, but hip hop wasn't the number 1 genre in '98. It was up there, but it was still climbing back then. And this album came out, had 10 Grammy nominations. Jeez. 5 Grammy wins. Jeez. I mean, let's just let that sink in. 10 Grammy nominations in 1998. This isn't the day where, you know, she wasn't. I mean, the Fugees were a popular group, but they weren't to the point where, you know, she should just get those Grammys. Like, you know, like Beyonce and the Destiny's Child, they were like a pop group basically. So when she went solo, she was always going to get Grammys for the first album. But Lauryn Hill, she had dark skin, she had like dreads, she wasn't like commercial. And it just shows how amazing the album was. There was only 3 singles on the album. There was what everybody loves, the song X Factor. There was that went 20 something in the charts, the Billboard charts, US Billboard charts. Then there was Can't Take My Eyes Off of You. That song was from the what's that film? Conspiracy Theory with Mel Gibson and I think Julia Roberts. That was on that soundtrack. That did work quite well as well. And then the song Do Wop, that one. That song went number 1 on the charts. That was a big song. That was her like singing. It was like the video was like 60s style, and she was like singing and she's busting to a rap. Classic song. The album only had 3 features actually. It was Mary J. Blige. I love that song. That was the I Used to Love Him. They're like going back and forth on some what's that thing called? Call and response style song. The vocals on that song, blooming heck, mate. Blooming heck is good. Tell you that for free. Then they got Carlos Santana was on that song. Zion. What was it called now? Into Zion. That was you know, if you don't know Carlos Santana, he was like a famous guitar player. That song's my favorite song on the album actually, Zion. And then, actually, there's D'Angelo was on it as well, the album. He was on that song called Nothing Even Matters. Sorry, I had to warm up my voice. But yeah, he's on that song as well. So those are the only 3 features on the album. Mary J, Carlos Santana, and D'Angelo. But the album was so good. It was like a mix. I listened to it recently as well. That's what made me want to do this episode. It's a mix of like reggae, hip hop, and like neo soul. Like you couldn't put this album in a hip hop category, in my opinion, because as much as there's a lot of rapping on it, the way she's blended like the 60s harmonies and like the hip hop kind of beats and the reggae beats and the reggae kind of production in some songs with like a soulful sound of her voice, and yeah, you just can't put it in one category. I think that's what makes the album so great, because it's like a blend of multiple black genres. But yeah, you can't put it in one box. Well, of course they'll put it in like a hip hop R&B box, but it's such a blend of different things. Like it's almost like putting a whole bunch of different seasoning and sauce and calling it like a standard sauce. It's like, nah, you're doing it a disservice. This is some classic hybrid type of thing. But yeah, let me get into one of my favorite songs on this album. It's called Zion. Hey yo, we're back. It's FHO, Fresh Hip Hop Opinion, with your guy Alize, and we're going into this classic album called The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. Classic album. And why this album was big? Because, you know, in hip hop, there's a lot of misogyny. There's a lot about jewelry, money, twerking. Although twerking didn't exist back then, or that term anyway. But yeah, whereas this album is a lot of course she's a singer, so there's a lot of singing about love. There's a lot about God, about trust issues or trusting in people. Yeah, it's a mad album, and when I really think about it, she's born 1975, I believe. And she was only about 22, 23 years old, singing all these songs and having this type of, I don't know, she seemed like she had a lot of experience. But when now I'm older and I look back, I'm like, she can't have had the type of experience. Her voice was just like an older, it's like she had an old soul, the way she sounded. But let's go through some of the classics. I mean, I've already mentioned some of them, but like X Factor and Zion, but you know, Lost Ones was a good one. Apparently that was a shot at her former Fugees, like Pras and Wyclef. There's a few bars for them there. Then obviously a lot of people liked the singles, like I mentioned before. Superstar was a goodie. That was a real good one. When It Hurts So Bad. When it hurts so bad. When it hurts so... Okay, let me stop. And yeah, I used to love him with Mary J. Blige. That was a good one. I like that one. Forgive Them, Father, sorry. Every Ghetto, Every City. Wasn't the biggest fan of that one. The Miseducation was a really cool one. That was probably the most like out of place song on the album. It was very anyway, you know what I'm saying. It just sounds very different from everything else on the album. Can't Take My Eyes Off of You. Classic cover, that one. I like that one, especially the beatbox beat. That was a bonus track. And then Tell Him, that was the last track. That was a good one. That's one of my favorites as well. That was my favorite. What I love about her voice though is, like, when you hear her rapping, it's very aggressive and snappy, but then her voice is so angelic and heartfelt. That's another big thing about the album. It's almost like a contrast, a big contrast between the two. I used to think actually that Miss Dynamite was, I know it's a big difference, but Miss Dynamite was like the UK version. That's how they were kind of pushing her anyway, because she was speaking about social things in the UK, but she was also a good singer and also a rapper as well. But Dynamite, yeah, she got pregnant and then put her career on hold and stuff like that. But she was, if she didn't get pregnant when she did, I think she would have been basically our equivalent of Lauryn Hill. But yeah, man, it was a shame. It's a shame, all I can say about Lauryn Hill. As much as this album is beautiful, it's a great album, it is a shame that she never made another one. It has to be the greatest album that never had a follow-up. You know, you could say like Outkast album in 2003, the Love Below double CD, like they never followed that up, as much as that went diamond as well. But at least we got a few Outkast albums over the years. We only got this album from Lauryn Hill, like a proper studio album. The only album we got after this was her live album she did in, I think it was 2006 or 2007. I was not impressed by that, you know what I mean? I need a beat. I can't just hear like guitars and stuff like that. I need to hear someone singing to a beat. You can't go from Lauryn Hill, the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, to a live album and that's it. Do you know what I mean? But fair play, I mean, we got music from her, but I need another studio album. I can't understand how somebody as talented as this girl won't do another album before she goes. She's got to. It's been, what, 30 years? Is that 30? Nah, it's like 27 or something like that, but it's a long time, man. But she has featured on a few songs over the years. She's been on, like, I think she's been on, she's definitely featured on stuff. She was on Nas's last album. That was a good song as well. But yeah, but we need that studio. We need that studio album, Mrs. Hill. Come on, Mrs. Hill. Another album. That's all we need. One more album. And then you can retire. I think I speak for all music listeners. An album that good needs a follow-up. But guys, it's been real. It's been real. Here we go. It's Fresh Hip Hop Opinion. Peace and love.